essential for you to live in Kandalam and bond with the community to get the feedback to make it a sustainable project, is it?
I think one of the wisest things that the company Atkins Spence did was by basing me in Kandalam. You see, because by that I was able to build up a good rapport with the villages and find out what their problems and issues and concerns were. And with that rapport, I was able to convince our top management, because I know if I go back 3 times they wanted to close the project, because they thought, why should we go through all this? After all, we are entrepreneurs, we do something to get something peacefully, you know, why should we get into controversies? But I told them, don't bother, these objections are coming from armchair environmentalists and various other politicians and others who have various different agendas. So I was more than convinced, living in the village, working with them, building the hotel, I was more than convinced that these objections were all superficial and they had various other agendas. But there were people who were concerned about the environment.
Genuinely.
Genuine, very genuine
as
people.
As opposed to the armchair critics.
Yeah, those people came and met me, right? Those people came and met me and they had long discussions and they asked me 1001 questions as to what we were doing, how we were going to get the water, what happens to the wastewater, what happens to the waste, and the effect on biodiversity, the effect on the social fabric there, all sorts of things. But then I was able to convince them because we opened it up and we let anybody come in and see it. You see, so that was a very interesting challenge which I faced in my life, and I am still with them. And now what I am doing at the moment is the concepts that we introduced way back in 1990s, we are now spreading that to all our hotels, chain of hotels. Plus, of course, I do a lot of work for various other organizations on introducing them to environmental projects, I may call it, you know, environmental actions, not just advocacy.
So we can actually come back to that in depth later, yeah. Mr. De Silva. But let's start our discussion with actually what is the challenge we are facing right now, that is environmentally. What is our climatic challenge?
Yeah, if you look at it in a macro scale, if you look at it in a global way, every living organism, not only humans, with every action of theirs, cause environmental impacts. Now, even now you are breathing. Now you are taking good oxygen and putting out carbon dioxide. There is not a moment in our life, not only humans, every living, that we do not impact on the environment. So that's the most important thing now. So if we are, with every action of ours, if we are impacting on the environment, number one is we should know what those impacts are. Number two, do something about it. Because after all, this planet is not only for you and I, it's for the entire humanity. So our children must never curse us. Our children must always remember our earlier generation did so much to protect us, because we know we have destroyed. Now we used to go and when you speak to school on CSR exercises, when you speak to school children, we tell them, it's not you people who have destroyed this, it's we, the parents and the teachers, this generation. So we are asking you to protect us also. So therefore, the best thing is get to know what these impacts are. You know, understand that that we cause impacts, good and bad, good and bad.
So that is a key element to start the whole realization with. Yeah. But when we also talk about environment, actually, Mr. De Silva, we find that there's a lot of discussions going on when it comes to environment, locally and internationally. There are many advocates who talk about the environment. They analyze the issue. We know the problems we face. But I would like to gear this discussion today to see how actually we can translate this into action, what we can do to an action. And I think there's no better person to do it than to talk with you, because you have made a name as to walking the talk when it comes to the field of environment. So how can you bring it down to grassroots levels? What can we do basically?
Yes, so now if we start with the fact that we understand that we are causing an impacts, obviously the next step is to realize, identify what these impacts are. Now for instance, you breathe and you put out carbon dioxide, take oxygen in. So therefore, obviously, the increase in population is going to be a bad impact, right? Similar, I'm giving a very general case. Like that, now every institution, whether it's a school or whether it's a factory or a hotel or even a home, there are a lot of impacts that you cause to the environment as a result of your activities, day-to-day activities. So try to understand what our activities are. Now, this is the process that we follow in an environment management system also. First, number one, identify your activities. Well, those are the things that cause impact. Then see what the impacts that those activities cause. Now, if you take an institution, you draw up aspects register, you know, the impacts, and the impacts are caused by aspects. Aspects are controllable by us, but impacts you can't. Now, if you throw some dirty water into the soil, it will pollute the soil. You can't control that, but you can control putting the dirty water in. So, that is the aspect, right. So, you have an aspect and an impact register. Then you select a few, you know, you can't, you are causing so much of impacts which have so many aspects, you can't control all that. So, take a few and try to do something about it, right. And then once you know there are certain aspects which you can control, then have a plan to control it, right. Then there are various techniques that you can do, very simple, these are all very simple. Any institution can do this, and many have done it, and there are a lot of good practices available in Sri Lanka for replication. You can, because picture is not so gloomy as many people feel.
But we tend to focus on the gloomy aspects,
Yes.
I guess. Now, what you said about identifying aspects and impacts and doing something about it, what are those best practices you were referring to?
Yes. Now, for instance, you have what is called, you establish what is called an environment management system. In short, they call it EMS in our parlance, right. EMS, environment management system, can be anywhere. And there are also the international organizations, you know, which have international standards. You can have your system to align yourself with the system to align itself with the international standard. There are many international standards. We can talk about details later, right. Now, what you do in the system, the first step is identification of how you impact on the environment, then trying to take a little bit of those aspects into consideration, trying to do something about it. So, have some objectives. Okay. For instance, say one aspect is use of electricity, right. So, if that is the aspect, what's your objective? To reduce the consumption of electricity, where you know this electricity about 65% today is by burning fossil fuels, by burning oil and gas, and very soon we will be burning coal also, right. So, now what do? Now, because of the high percentage of thermal power that we use, we must try our best to reduce it, or go in for renewable sources. That is another question altogether. We might not have the technologies, but we have to try to improve that also. So, what you do is reduce electricity, that is the objective. Now, you can't have that is just theory, no, that is just philosophy. Now, you will say, well, I want to reduce my electricity, that is very good, okay. What do you do about it? Have a target. Now, that is a qualitative objective. Have a quantitative target. Okay, see, what's your consumption for a month? Now, virtually about, I think, 65 to 70% of Sri Lankans today pay a electricity bill. Okay. How many kilowatt hours? Because the rates can vary, you know. Okay. Say, for instance, 1000 kilowatt hours. Now, what I would do is, within a course of say 6 months or 1 year, I will reduce that to 900. Right? That is a realistic target which you can achieve. Now, that still we are on theory, right? Still we are on philosophy. Now, what is the next step? A program. That is what you said, walking the talk, right. Now, these all talk, right. Now, we always say in Sinhala, we say kaivaru anyway keruvaru, that is the most important. So, now that you have a target to mitigate some of these impacts that we cause, that is very simple, right. It's not a complicated thing. Now, you have a program. Now, you have a program to achieve that target of reduction of electricity. I am just talking one example. Now, how do you do this? Now, this is the most important thing. You need total commitment, absolutely total commitment. You just the top people, or say the mother and father alone can't do it, it's a children, you know, running amok, right. Everybody should get involved. If it is school, the principal, the teachers and the school children. If it is an institution, the top corporates and filtering down to the last man on the job. Everybody must be committed to activate these programs. Now, so from where do the programs come? It can't come from top to bottom. This is a mistake that many people do. And no from bottom to top. It must be eye to eye. You know, you should have a brainstorming session, and you must have a committee or committees across the board through all functions, all levels. Then what happens? Everybody's ideas are put forward.
Like how you did in Kandalama, as
Yes,
you said,
exactly.
talking to the people in the village.
Exactly. And all staff members. So, we had committee, then you have a brainstorming session. We want to reduce, for example, the example that we are talking of, by 100 kilowatt hours per annum. It's just hypothetical, right? How do you do it? So, everybody come, they will come out, they will contribute. We are having a brainstorming session. In a brainstorming session, what I say is no